Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Club One Voice. Today, we're going to be talking about another position, the setting position, the quarterback position of volleyball, essentially. And so to help talk about this, because I'm not a setter, although I wish I was, I have two awesome setters and coaches with me today. On this episode, we have Coach Regina, our 17 Platinum coach, and Coach Jordan, our 16 Platinum coach. They both joined us in 2019, and we're super fortunate to have them as part of Club One. So just to give you a little bit of background on them as coaches and players, I'm going to start with Coach Jordan. He's been coaching volleyball since 2011, and during that time, his club teams have earned 5 bids to nationals and 4 top 50 rankings. He's also the head coach over at Highland High School for their women's volleyball program. And I believe you led them to their first Final Four appearance this last season. So that was super exciting. And when he was a player, he set all 4 years at Gilbert High School, helped lead the program to their first undefeated regular season and first state championship appearance. And he also earned multiple all-state and all-region honors. Then for Coach Regina, she is also the head coach at Scottsdale Community College and has been there since 1996, has earned countless Coach of the Year awards, and also produced many NJCAA All-Americans and ACCAC Players of the Year, even including Setter of the Year Katie Spees last season, who's also a Club One alum and coach. So fun fact. And the Scottsdale program won the NJCAA Division II National Championship last season. So we were all pretty stoked right before starting the club season about that. As a high school player in California, Regina was CIF Co-Player of the Year and number 2 on the Fab 50 recruit list. And then she went on to compete as a setter for Arizona State in college. And she still holds multiple records that she set from her four-year career there, including total career assists and assists in a single match. And she was also named an NCAA All-American. So as you can see, we're super happy to have them as coaches, and they're going to have great perspective on what it takes to be a setter, because that was their playing experience. So I'm excited to hear you guys' insight. And just for our first question, I wanted to hear, how did you become a setter in the first place? Was it your choice, or did someone spot you and put you in that position? Would love to hear more of that story.
Well, I was not a setter to begin. I wasn't even a volleyball player. So I was an avid softball player and a BMX racer. And some of my softball teammates going into high school were also playing volleyball. And they were a couple years older than me. We'd played on multiple softball all-star teams together, and actually found me at a Tasty Freeze and said, "Hey, you're not at volleyball tryouts." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't think I'm going to play volleyball. I think I'm just going to do softball, basketball, and ride my bike." And they're like, "No, you're gonna try for volleyball." And I was like, "Yeah." Well, eventually I got kind of peer pressured into showing up. So I did try out. I did make the varsity team, but not as a setter, because I wasn't any good. I was just an athlete. And I was an opposite. And then my coach, who is Brian Gimolero, who is an amazing volleyball mind, at the end of my sophomore year, said, "Yeah, I'm going to make you a setter." And I was like, I have the worst hands on the team. I'm literally the worst hands. I had the biggest hands on the team. They're ginormous, but the worst. And he said, "That's the easiest thing to teach. So you're going to be a setter." I was like, okay.
Sounds like he made a great choice.
I'm thankful.
That's really cool.
Wow.
For me, my mom actually set at the Division II level way back in the day, and so volleyball had kind of always been in our lives a little bit. And when I started playing, I just kind of assumed I would be a setter, and I've never done anything else except for set the ball. This is the only thing I've ever done.
The family position.
Yes, it is.
I love
yes,
that. Just like I usually say, volleyball for us is the family sport.
Yeah.
But so Coach Jordan, you were like, "Yes, I'm going to be a setter. That's my thing." Coach Regina, for you, it was a little more of a surprise. What took you from first stepping into that position and, learning how to have good hands, ball-shaped hands, to actually becoming a really skilled setter? What was that process like?
So I was really lucky in that my very first volleyball coach is Brian Gimolero. My second volleyball coach, which was my very first club coach, was Chuck Irby, who at the time was a USC head coach. So those are my
Wow.
two coaches. So I never had like, hey, let's play queens. There was nothing like that. It was like real information. I never had to relearn something or unlearn something. I learned, just amazing coaching from the very beginning. As at the time I was coming along as a setter, I was undersized, still am. I was undersized then too. Volleyball was slower. It was more higher tempo balls. Brian Jamilero was involved with the U.S. national team at the time, and Ari Selinger was our Olympic coach, and he was training Debbie Green to go faster, and they were going to be the fastest in the world. So I kept, kind of didn't have a vision of what that would be like, and Brian just kept saying, get there as fast as you can, get your hands on the ball, see your hitter, and put the ball in her hand as fast as you can do it. Well, nobody was doing that. So he started taking me to the Olympic team practice and let me watch Debbie Green. And then he would bring her over during their breaks, and she would sit and talk to me and explain to me how to do it, how to position my hands, why you position your hands that way, and just constantly how to get in great body position so you could go fast and keep a tempo with your hitter. So the idea was constantly that the hitters are going to go as fast as they can, and you're going to put the ball in their hands. And so I just looked into three amazingly talented people who were really close to me, and I had an amazing experience every single day learning. And it was great. So I learned in about a year and a half, I learned to do it and became player of the year in that position. And Brian Jamilero was the person I give him all the credit. I worked hard, but I had no knowledge. He saw something in me I didn't. He just gave me all the information, and I lucked out.
Wow, that's amazing.
He changed my life, yeah.
Coaches really can change your life. Wow, good coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really hearing, like, if you want to become great, really in any position, like, you can't do it by yourself. You have to be willing to open yourself up to insight and feedback from people who know a lot more than you. It clearly pays off. And then I also was really interested to hear you talking about how important it is to get to the ball fast. Like, a lot of people think it's all about the hands, but you learned it's so important to get your feet to the ball and really get in position as fast as possible, even before you get your hands on it.
Yeah, and I think that's where softball helped me. I think that I read the ball off a pass faster than most setters, and I could go full speed because I knew where I was going, so I rarely had to slow down or change direction. And I think that ended up being a big advantage for me. And I think as far as the assists at ASU still, why that's still there, I think that's a big reason, is that I got to more balls than most people with my hands than most people could. And I think that's why.
That's amazing. And you're not the first Club One coach who I've heard has seen benefits from playing other sports transfer into playing volleyball. How about you, Coach?
That's really
Jordan?
funny you'd say that. I actually played baseball all growing up. So right until I started probably my sophomore year, I was playing baseball, real competitively, traveling and stuff. And I would say some of the same things. Like I had a good eye for where the ball was going to be, a good anticipation skills. For me, as far as like learning to be good, I played a ton of outdoor. And I played outdoor with my brother, who was 4 years younger. And so we started playing tournaments at 15 and 11 and started winning a little bit at like 17 and 13, 16, 12. But in that time, he was the one that was getting served every single ball. And so I learned a lot about delivering something that was really hittable off the net, something he could work with, And so the outdoor game is probably where I learned the most about setting hittable stuff. And then I was lucky to have Jeff Grover as a coach, who's our boys coach at Highland. Worked at Gilbert High for a long time as a phenomenal coach, and he taught me a ton about the game and how to run offense and command the situation, work with hitters and that stuff. So, but I think playing outdoor for me and just getting a lot of reps, setting the volleyball out there, helped me learn how to set hittable balls.
Yeah, we were talking with our some of our One Beach coaches and actually the One Beach director about how when you play beach, you automatically get like maybe 3 times as many contacts or reps as you would playing indoor, just because you're going to have to touch the ball every play. So So in your guys' opinion, after playing the setting position for so many years and having coached a lot of setters now as well, what are some of the most challenging aspects of playing that position well?
I think that often the wrong personality type gets put in as a setter early on. And you have to have a person, I think to be a great setter, you have to be willing to be whatever your team needs. And you're supposed to make everybody else better without getting credit for it and without them really knowing it. So the challenge there is that's emotionally draining to show up every day and make somebody else better without them knowing it. And if you can't do that, then you're not the right fit for that position, because that's a grind. And when they don't really know that you're doing that, they're not very grateful. You're not getting a lot of positive feedback, and that's the deal. That's the deal. So I think training young setters and getting them to accept that you're not supposed to be the limelight. And I tell my setters, the only people who are going to know you're doing a really good job is me, you, and there might be two people in the stands that are intelligent enough about this position or our game to understand what you're really, because it should just look easy. And if it looks hard, I said, if you're going down the mountain and it looks like you're doing moguls, then you're not doing it right. So when you got all this flair and it's flashy and it's dramatic, you're not doing it right. And you're drawing attention to yourself. And I said, I think that's the hardest thing to get them to switch over to sort of almost being invisible and doing a lot of work behind the scenes with their teammates. I think that's the hardest thing.
Some of our coaches who have played the libero position said something similar, how it really, for those types of positions where you're not the one necessarily scoring the point, you really have to be a selfless player and just putting up great balls so other people can score the point and take the credit, but obviously they couldn't have done it without you. It requires a selfless person.
As far as positions go, it's the true servant leader position. You have to have that mindset. And I totally agree with Regina when she says that so few people are going to give the setter credit for anything. And really good coaches, like Regina probably does, but even most coaches totally overlook that touch, and they're quick to say great dig and they're quick to say nice kill. And a lot of times that really wears on a setter. And so, but there's no fix for that. You have to go in, you have to serve, and then you get out and you've done your job. So it's tough. It's a tough position for sure on the mind for our kids too. It's a hard one for kids that are unconfident because you touch so many volleyballs, you don't ever get a break. So if you're feeling a little unconfident, you will absolutely touch the volleyball on the next 6 rallies, whereas some other kids can hide a little bit. You just don't ever get that chance. You're always engaged. And so it's a real challenge for confidence for sure.
So when you guys were navigating that, touching the ball every play, trying to be whatever your teammates need at a given moment, what helped you feel more confident, feel more capable in your position, and how do you pass that on to the setters you coach now?
Well, one, I knew I had information that other setters that I was playing against didn't have. So I knew I had an advantage. I knew I had the secret sauce, so to speak. But I think it's just being consistent. I think if you train the same way you compete, there's no difference. It's very easy. If you try to pick and choose your moments in practice, you will not be a very effective setter. You cannot have highs and lows, mentally, physically, or emotionally. You have to be the stability every day in the gym, no matter what's going on. So I think when you do that, it's pretty easy to then take the exposure, that Jordan was saying about if you are not confident. I always say you're going to be exposed. Whatever your biggest fear is, you're about to be exposed with it. So you might as well get rid of it. Let's just deal with it head on because it's coming. Let's control the fall because it's going to happen. But I think if you do that and you train at that level, then there's nothing scary about it. It's actually, I was quite confident that I'm going to be able to better this play if I can get my hands on that ball, because in practice, it was just expected that you did it at full speed all the time. And it was never any different.
I think that is a common trait in really good setters is they're bad at pool volleyball and they hate like 4th of July volleyball, because if we're going to play, then we're going to play really hard and we're going to demand a lot of the people around us and we're going to kind of hold this standard. I think that's something that good setters, you know, that I talk to, we don't play a lot of 4th of July volleyball. We're not fun to play with in those scenarios because we play really hard.
Oh, that's so interesting. I could totally picture it though now. Even thinking of the setters I've played with, just no, not interested. Something I've seen a lot as a hitter, someone who played in one of the hitter positions, is setters working really hard to build trust with their hitters, outsides, middles, right sides, trying to pull them out of slumps, trying to communicate with them like, hey, I'm going to give you this ball. I've always just been fascinated watching that and would love to hear your guys' thoughts on how did you build trust with your hitters? How do you coach your setters now to build that communication with the hitters in different positions who of course have different personalities? What are your insights on that part of the game?
Well, I think one, if you spend time getting to know your hitter in practice, you'll figure out what makes them uncomfortable, what they're willing to do and what they'll make excuses for failing at doing. And make sure that you're giving them the ball that you know they can be successful with instead of the ball they're sometimes asking for. So there's sometimes a big difference there. I think if you're consistent in practice with your effort and they know what to expect from you every single time, I think that helps them be more confident and trust you. Also, when I made a mistake, I would say, that was my mistake. I set into a double block. I lost track of so-and-so. That was my mistake. Most of the time when I ran a play, I would tell each hitter, I'm running this play to accomplish this against that defense. So your shot is going to be down the line. Your shot's going to be middle of the court. Your shot is deep corner. So they knew that I'm pulling and pushing and doing things to create a space on the court for you in your skill set. So if you can't hit line, I'm not running a play that puts the ball in your hand to hit line. I'm going to move your serve receive around so that I give you the ball you're comfortable with, and you're also striking the ball in the area of the court that's going to be open. So I think they were really confident that they weren't going to have to do a lot of that heavy thinking, that I would have already figured out the defense and that I knew certain blockers I could hold and create a split, and I knew that was going to happen and what would be there. So I think that helped them be pretty confident. And if it didn't work out, I owned it and, took the responsibility for it.
Yeah, that would make me super confident. Oh my gosh. It sounds like you got to a place where you almost knew your hitters better than they knew themselves. And
yeah,
it takes a lot of work to build that kind of relationship.
Yeah, but I think the best hitters are also the players. Like, I was very fortunate to play with Tammy Webb Liley in college, and we also played for the same club team in high school at Cal Juniors. But she was that type of player that worked as hard every single day, didn't matter. And so it was so consistent that she was easy to set because you knew she was going to be the same tempo every single time. It wasn't going to be, oh, all of a sudden she jumps 3 inches higher in a game than she does in practice. That's annoying. The hitters that do that, she wasn't that. So I had a couple hitters that worked really hard in practice, and it was pretty simple.
I think a really important word in this like setter-hitter relationship is empathy too. We talk about that a lot with our setters, that if you've ever dumped a ball into the net and you know how embarrassing that is and just how vulnerable you feel in that and how bad you feel, like that's what hitters are feeling 8, 9, 10 times a match some nights. They're feeling that getting blocked or hitting a ball into the net over and over again. And so, when setters get impatient with hitters, I think, like, what if you dumped 10 balls into the net tonight? Like, how would you feel? That'd be really, really hard to work through. And so your hitter is working through that right now. They're trying to figure out, what they believe about themselves as they're making errors, And so once you think maybe a little bit about what they're feeling, then you can start speaking some confidence into them. Like Regina was saying, and this is super important, like finding a matchup that works, but then letting them know you found a matchup that works, right? So you find a small kid on the court and you go to your outside hitter and say, hey, you got this small kid right here. Let's beat him up. Let's go get him. I'm going to give you a couple balls right here. And so you've found the matchup. You've told them you found a matchup for them, and then you feed them and just kind of let them go. So, but I think empathy is super important, and that's really hard. It's hard for anybody, but it's really hard for kids for sure to figure that out.
Yeah, it definitely takes a level of maturity and self-awareness. But I'm intrigued to hear you guys talking about all these things they're kind of like the soft skills, the non-volleyball skills, that the communication, the empathy, just awareness, paying attention to things that are outside of yourself. And so the cool thing is those are all things that we could be working on right now while we're not getting the setting reps on the court. So as we wrap up, I'd love just to open it up for you guys to share any thoughts you have for things setters can be working on that will help their game, that are maybe not volleyball specific skills during this time. And then anything you want to share to your team, so I know you haven't been able to see in the gym for some time now.
Well, I think setting wise, now's a great time to practice how do I manipulate a serve receive pattern, and why would I do that? What's the advantage of, so you're in serve receive and you haven't sided out, there's 2 points or 2 serves and you haven't sided out yet. You need to make a change, and you need to be able to make it fast. And a lot of players don't understand the overlaps that they should, even the older players. So setters have to understand and be able to pull players quickly and put them in a spot and kind of take responsibility of how to do that and problem solve that doesn't require a timeout. And so I think they could do a lot of that. You could do that on paper and pencil. I usually teach my setters to do it with Post-its, 2 different colors. So you have a back row one color, a front row the other color. You put it down on a whiteboard, or where I like to do whiteboards. Put on the whiteboard and then run your plays all underneath that and move those pieces all around so you can see the overlaps. You can tell obviously who's front row, back row. And you go through each rotation and come up with, okay, give me a different serve receive formation. If that didn't work, what's your next serve receive formation and why? Like there has to be a why. Don't just do it to be different. Give me a why. What's the advantage? And then let's make sure that hitter knows this is why we're doing it. So make sure you hit this ball to this point or this spot, or whatever it is. So I think setters could get better. Their volleyball IQ could go up with identifying opportunities on certain defenses. Each defense is giving something and taking something. So don't battle with what they're already taking, and find a way to score on what they're giving. They can't take everything. So I think if they watch more film about, okay, and identifying, oh, that's a rotation defense, that's a man-up defense, that's a whatever defense, and learn what that is, I think that would be easily something they could work on right now.
Yeah, a great time to grow in some knowledge of the game. Just familiarize yourself seeing the way different teams set up their offense and defense, and then kind of visualizing what your attack plan would be against that. That's
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think film is a really important element of this time right now. We have infinite access to volleyball matches. We could be quarantined for another 3 years and you would never get through the volleyball matches that YouTube has to offer. If you searched any collegiate team, any solid club, any high school out there, everybody's got content, and so then I would encourage kids to watch, but watch critically, so don't watch as a fan, watch as a setter, and watch and see what you liked and what you didn't like, and maybe decisions you would have made or didn't make, or at really solid levels with teams you like. Look for matchups, and then look to maybe see if the setter is exploiting that, so this team has a big outside hitter and the opponent maybe has a smaller middle blocker. So are they running that outside hitter inside at all, or they keep pinning them kind of up against that line, up against the larger opposite blocker? Watch critically. Spend a lot of time watching though.
That's great advice. And I know we're going to keep building out our YouTube channel with game film so that our players can just come to our channel and hopefully find some great matches to dig into. Any final words for your teams before we conclude this episode?
Well, it's a bummer. Obviously, it's a bummer for everybody that we are not playing and together. But this year's team, for me and club, was a really non-dramatic, fun group. And there aren't a lot of years like that. So I'm really disappointed that we didn't have more opportunities to play, because I think there was a possibility there are some pretty big growth spurts. that didn't happen and would have happened because of just they weren't getting in their own way. They were really working hard to learn and opening themselves up to be a bit vulnerable. And I'm super bummed for them and for me, not to be able to be a part of it. But hopefully everybody stays healthy and safe, and this was all for something.
Definitely want to shout out our two setters, Tia and Lils. You guys were phenomenal to work with, and I learned a lot from you. And just seconding what Regina said, it's hard because this was a really fun year. Like, I wanted to go to Denver with these guys, and we wanted to go to Minneapolis, and it seemed like the momentum was getting a lot better. And yeah, it's really hard. It's hard to have something cut short that you work really hard to prepare, to get team together, and you work really hard on building relationships. And we're almost at the stage of the season where you've done a ton of the tough work, like the hardest work of breaking things down, and you're ready to build and momentum's good. And then you have to stop, So for my kids, thank you so much for going through that really hard part with me, because that's a tough season. The Novembers and Decembers and Januaries are really hard. And I'm sorry it didn't get to pay out in June when we should be playing our best volleyball. So.
And you know what? Maybe the lesson in this is I tell players at the college level mostly, most athletes don't know their last competition. Most of the time, you are not in control of that. So you don't know the last time you step on the floor is going to be. So don't take it for granted. And most of them do. So maybe this generation this year, they will no longer take it for granted because it did get taken away. This time it wasn't an ACL, or you just didn't make the starting lineup, or you didn't get chosen on a team, but it got taken away. And so maybe when they get back, they will appreciate what a gift it is to be able to do it. Because for all of us, playing on a competitive team, the clock is ticking. Like, you could play for fun forever, but playing when you have an actual coach and structure that runs out.
And I'm sure your players feel so thankful to have had you guys as their coaches this year. I know we're super thankful for your knowledge and insight and your care for your athletes, and thankful that you joined us on this episode today to share it with more people, even outside of just those girls that you coach this season. So thank you so much. This wraps up episode 5 for us, and hope all you setters out there enjoyed it. I learned a lot too. Maybe I'll come back and be a setter. Who knows? But thank you, coaches.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.